Welcome to Keepin Tabs. I'm Tabitha Crock, and every Monday we talk to a different community member here in North Idaho. And then we end our weeks with something I'm passionate about: the adventures, outdoors, and sports. So follow along to hear some amazing stories and meet some very interesting people. All right, I have Joe Hawley here with me, and I am so excited. He is actually, don't let this beard chill dude he was a football player, which was really cool, but he has changed his life to the van life, which I am so excited to hear about. For one, because I have just gotten a van. So tell me a little bit about you and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I played in the NFL for 8 years. I got drafted in 2010 by the Falcons in the fourth round. I played 5 years there, and then ended up going down to Tampa Bay to play for the Buccaneers for my final 3 years of the NFL. And then in 2017, after my body started breaking down, and I really came to this realization that I didn't want to play football anymore, that my heart was calling me to something else. So I ended up walking away from the game kind of before my time was up. I just felt like it was time to move on. I went through a big kind of transition in my relationship as well. And so like I went through this huge life change where everything I had known and everything I had worked for was gone. Like I had to move on from it. And I had this kind of awakening. And when I was sitting on my couch, kind of figuring out what I wanted to do next, I knew that I had an opportunity to explore my freedom for the first time from football that I had been playing my entire life, like 16 years, my entire adult life. I've been focused on this one thing. Singular purpose is to achieve greatness in this sport. And now that it was over, I was like, now what? And I had a little bit of an identity crisis, which I know a lot of athletes deal with. And so I decided it was a great opportunity to go explore the country and get my mind off of that and kind of explore, who I was without the game of football. So I ended up buying a van, a Mercedes Sprinter van, and ended up traveling the country. I was only going to do it for a few months just to kind of explore my freedom. Ended up turning into like a 1.5 year road trip adventure that has like completely changed my life in so many profound ways. I started a little blog called Man Van Dog Blog to kind of share my journey, and that's how I've connected with a lot of people. And now I'm working on actually really deep in the process of writing a book about the experience through football, through the transition, and what I learned on the road. And so that should be coming out in a few months, which I'm really excited about. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
That's exciting. Is there one thing that pushed you to, get the van? Is there like a moment that you're like, this is it? Or someone that said, hey, you should try this?
There's kind of a few different things. I think like probably in 2015 or 16, I still had a couple years I played, but I met this guy. It was actually one of my ex's best friend's boyfriend, and he had a van. And I went to this festival with them, and his van was there. And I was like, dude, this is so dope. Like, you just travel in this? He's like, yeah. And so he had been living that lifestyle for a year or two. And so I just kind of talked to him. I was like, that's very fascinating to me. And so it started intriguing me and getting my mind wandering about it. And then my final couple of years, I was on Instagram scrolling through my feed, and I followed a couple national park pages, and I was just really into nature and like felt called to nature. And I just remember looking at all these really beautiful places like in our own country. I was like, wow, like these are all just like fascinating, beautiful pictures. I was like, do I want to be the kind of guy that sees these places through a screen, or do I want to go like stand in the awe of the actual beauty and feel like the essence of these places? And so that, coupled with the van life, coupled with the going through a breakup, kind of being alone with no job, I had a little bit of money in the bank. I was like, this is it. Like, it's all kind of aligning to go do this road trip. And I think every single person I think that's grown up in this country at some point has like imagined doing a road trip across the country. So it's just like, I have the opportunity as a grown adult with some money saved, without a job, kind of in this transition period, to go live it. Like, it's my responsibility to do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it felt.
So what have you learned most about this, about yourself? Like, what has this brought out? Like, if there's one, I guess there's probably not just one thing, but what have you noticed the most about yourself, whether it's growing, whether it's you found something about yourself you never thought you would? You probably are going to write about it in the book, but
Yeah, I'm writing a whole book about this.
I was like, the book is probably all about this question.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I'll share a little, and the book's been crazy because it's one thing living the experience, and then going back through and writing these stories out. I've had so many like realizations, like while I'm writing, like literally, like we're telling a story, and then just being like, oh my god, like, and like uncovering deeper layers of that story and like what it means, and so I basically am realizing that I used, a lot of people deal with this worthiness issue, like self-worth, and a lot of people have a void. We all do as human natures, and we seek out external validation, money, success, fame, whatever it is, to fill that void within ourselves. And for me, it was football, and I love football, and it was amazing, and I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to achieve one of the hardest things statistically to do, and that's playing the NFL. And like when that dream was born, I was using it as a way to feel worthy and validated and receive attention and love from my family, my friends, from the fans. And even though I was really conscious, like a lot of people get really lost in that. And I always was like, I'm aware of, I'm not, like, football is something I do. It's not who I am. But even then, when it was all over, like I felt a deep void within myself. It was like, oh my gosh, like how can I prove my self-worth without the one thing that I used to navigate that my entire life is like performance on the field. And so I went on in the van life, and I learned that, I am worthy without that. And filling that void with my own self-love and doing the work on myself and uncovering the stories about who I am, and the conditionings and the way society tells us what success is and what success looks like, and what is attractive, and like all these things, and really looking inward at these stories and uncovering them and realizing that that's all they are stories. And when you get to the deeper roots of these stories, you can start creating the story that you want to live. And so now I've kind of come out of this van life, like still with a lot of work to do, but with a lot more confidence in who I am as a person, not relying on these other external things to give me validation or value, but really showing up in the world as a person with inherent value, ready to share that gift with the world. And that's kind of what I want to inspire people in the books about, is like sharing my story to help people navigate, and there's so many different layers to what that is. That's like the main overarching theme. But like overcoming fear, like getting outside your comfort zone, like that's where all the growth happens. And a lot of people, they seek out their entire lives trying to create a comfortable life of certainty. And what I've learned is life is uncertain. There's the impermanence of it. Like anything can happen on any day. And just like this, when the globe shut down because of this pandemic, it's like anything can happen. And that really kind of shook a lot of people's lives, because it's like, oh my gosh, how do I navigate this unknown? And me walking away from football and my relationship because it just didn't feel right. It was like deep in my heart, like something was calling me, and it takes a lot of courage. I know a lot of people feel that, but they end up being like, okay, I'd rather stay comfortable when I know things aren't quite right, but it's like, this is known, at least I know this. And they stay in a bad relationship or a bad job that's unsatisfying, or stay in a city and an environment that they're not really thriving in because it's comfortable. And it takes a lot of courage for someone to really answer the call of their heart and go explore and find out like who they really are without that. And so like kind of leaning into fear and overcoming fear and having the courage to do so, and following your heart, and like all these things is really what I want to share about and talk about.
Oh, I'm so excited. When does this book come out?
I'm almost done with the manuscript, and then the editing process will take probably 2 or 3 months, back and forth, depending how well it's written. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'll see. My ego is probably going to take a hit after getting some red lines through there, but it's good. Like what I've learned, like I hired a writing coach, which I'm so grateful for, because it's such a daunting task to think about by myself. Because I'm, there's a whole nother deeper level story that, sorry if I go off on a tangent here, but when I first started the trip and I wanted to start the blog, I actually was like, I'm going to do a blog. Everybody's doing it now. And so I sat down before I even took off on the trip and I was going to do a written blog. And I wrote for like 3 hours and I was like, oh, this is going to be so good. And I went back and reread what I wrote and I was like, oh my God. And I had like never journaled or written anything in my life. And I expected I was just going to sit down and write like a good blog. And I read it and I was like, wow, I just sound like a dumbass. Like, this is just not good. I can't do this. And so like a lot of self-limiting beliefs came on. Like, I'm not a writer. Like, I really never felt like a good writer. And so like, I was like, you know what? I'm going to use a medium of creativity that I'm way more comfortable with, which was video. So I decided to do YouTube. So I did more like a vlog, and that's a whole nother story, like talking to a camera and getting comfortable doing that. But that was a lot more, like, less vulnerable for me to share myself that way, because I could hide behind the creativity and the shots and the music. And like, but when you write, it's like so raw and vulnerable and you're putting yourself out there. And I just didn't want to be subject to that. And through the process of traveling in the van, I actually like started journaling and started writing every day. And I started, writing positive affirmations at the end of my journal entries every day. Like, I am a good writer. I am going to write a book. I am an author. And even though I didn't believe it at the time, I was like using these practices to reinforce these positive thoughts in my brain of who I am. And like the craziest things started happening. Like, the more I'd write, and I'd write for myself, not for anyone else. So it was just a lot more raw and I was able to be vulnerable. Like, I just realized like the words started flowing out of me like a lot easier and a lot more beautifully. And I'm like, whoa, who is writing this? And that was like, I started journaling and writing for myself probably a year ago. And now I'm like confidently showing up every day and writing a book.
Cool.
And so it just goes to show you, like, you can really reprogram these stories about who you are and what you think you're capable of, because there's no way I would have been like, yeah, I'm going to write a book and do it myself. And now I'm like showing up and actually like excited about putting it out there and seeing what people think about it and sharing my story in a vulnerable way. So yeah, it's been really, really fascinating.
That's really cool. So I bet your body is really happy that you quit football too. So what do you do for fitness now?
Yeah. That's one thing I was really looking forward to being done playing was it was just physically so tough on my body. I mean, I got bone spurs in both my ankles. I dislocated my left kneecap twice. I had total knee construction on my right knee. My ACL and MCL blew out. It was like an 11-month recovery and surgery. A torn labrum in my shoulder, bulging disc in my neck. And so my body was just like barely hanging on and waking up every day in pain. And so I really I traveled a lot and I started doing a lot more yoga, and I do a lot more body weight movements and hiking, but I really took it easy. And about a year and a half ago, I really dove into like a daily yoga practice to try and get my body back. And it has completely changed my life. Switching this idea that I need to like go into a weight room and lift heavy weights, but my joints, it hurts my joints. Like every time I'd go do some squats, like my back would hurt the next day and my knees. And I'm like, but I felt like that's what I needed to do, because it's like again, it's this story and it's ingrained in my mind. And so like reframing that into going and showing up on the mat and sitting in poses and like surrendering into like the breath and the pose and doing these more like opening the body up rather than trying to push the body. And it's really like, I showed up on the mat for the physical benefits, and it's like had so much more deeper effects with like my mindset, my mind body connection, and all of that. And so right now, I mean, I really just try to I like to say consistency over intensity. So I really don't lift that much anymore. I try to move in the morning because I wake up and my body is like really tight and there's still crinks everywhere. And so I do like some movements, some stretches. I like to shake it out. I'll go on walks. I like to have a kettlebell. I'll do some swings, but I just do like 20 to 40 minute little movement practices that involve stretching. Probably I try to do once or twice a day, and just consistently move throughout the day, I think is way more important than like, this old idea of having to go to the gym for an hour and a half and really like sweat and be like, I think that's just hard to do because it's intimidating, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. So next question, what is your favorite type of music or favorite band?
Favorite type of music. I like Pandora because it plays music for me. And I've never really been like I don't have a library of music because I think it's just another thing to think about with songs and artists. And so I like just kind of picking like a genre or something. So I like I like EDM, like smooth electronic kind of music, because it kind of puts me in a trance. It's like a meditative state, especially when I'm driving. And I like, the high energy vibes when I'm out. So I like Kygo. Like I have Kygo radio. It's a lot of good jams on there. I also like, probably one of my favorite bands is the Revivalists.
Mm.
And they, like a smooth indie rock kind of feel. But I mean, I love music. I love live music. I just don't I'm never the guy that's the DJ or picking the songs, cause I like it all, if it's good music, I'll listen to it.
Yeah. I'm that person in my relationship. I'm like, I'll take the DJ role.
Yeah.
All right. So
I'm glad there's people like you because it takes off all the stress off of me.
So favorite food, like if you could just pick a meal to eat forever, what would it be?
Oh, wow. So I've definitely cleaned up my diet. Like a part of my journey and part of my healing journey has been how I fuel my body. And it's crazy how when we get in touch with what we put in our body, especially me, like I can tell when my inflammation is spiked and my pain is up, and my body's tight. And it's like, that's not just because I, physically did something. It's because I'm feeling my body and I can feel that. So it's definitely changed over the years. Like I would say probably when I was eating unhealthy, like Chinese food was I loved it. And I probably would have said that would be my final meal. I haven't had Chinese food, actual, the really fried Chinese food for probably 3 or 4 years. Cause I just know how bad it is for me. Now I really appreciate natural food and really healthy food. And my girlfriend's a really amazing cook. And so she cooks all these veggies and, I'm definitely eating a lot more plant-based now. But yeah, an actual meal, I would say my favorite type of food is rice.
Ooh, yeah.
So anything with rice, any type of rice, you go down to Peru and rice is one of the big things, rice and soup. And I remember going down there, I hiked the Inca Trail. And every single meal, they had a different kind of rice with it. And I was like, this is amazing. I could live here.
You're like, yes, all the rice.
Mm-hmm.
So this is I guess a selfish question, but what is in your van, what is the one thing you have to have that is or maybe even just a couple of things that are so beneficial to living on the road in a van?
Yeah, so this is good. So I when I first hit the road, I hadn't ever done it, right? And so I remember reaching out to my buddy that had done it. I'm like, what do I need? What's the thing? And his advice was always you're not going to need as much as you think, and just go start doing it and experience it and learn as you go. And that was really great advice. And the van I bought, I thought it was really cool. It was an E350 Ford pop top sportsmobile, and it was really amazing. But living in it for 6 months, I realized there's a lot of things I do differently. It wasn't very comfortable. The fridge space wasn't good. And then I ended up finding this new van, which is the Sprinter van, which has everything the way I want it. And it's pretty amazing. There's not a lot of work with the pop top. It's a high roof, so I can stand up in it. It's got the fridge space. It's got a little kitchenette. And it's got a full queen size bed in the back, which is amazing. So I think the number one thing to think about is the sleeping situation. Are you going to be comfortable? Is there going to be enough room? I think the fridge is pretty big. I have a Dometic. It's almost like an ice chest that opens up, and you can plug it in to an outlet. And I think there's 12 volts too that you can plug into cars, and that keeps it cold. And those are really amazing. And I actually have it it's on the slider that slides underneath this table.
Oh, cool.
And then I think having an easy way to cook food, but that's really not that big a deal if you want to save space, because there's little stove things you can twist on, those little propane tanks, and cook on those camping stuff. So that's really not a terribly big deal. But having some water to clean your pans and stuff if you're going backcountry camping, but that's really not that big a deal. If you're going to RV parks or campsites, there's always they usually have good bathrooms, and there's always access to water. So a lot of people are I don't have a bathroom on mine. And I think as a female, it's a little bit different story. But for me as a male, I stop at a lot of Starbucks to use the restroom. They have really nice bathrooms as I'm traveling and living out of this thing. That's a little secret for you guys. If you're going and need to go to the bathroom on a road trip, Starbucks always have clean bathrooms, always easy to go. It's way better than the gas stations. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, I would say comfort's big, making sure you're comfortable.
Yeah, we're getting the good bed. So I knew that was going to be number one.
Yeah.
So what is one piece of advice you would give a younger you?
Oh, that's such a good question. Oh, it's fascinating because that question, I always tell myself, like, if I knew what I know now when I was younger, like, life would be so different, right? But that's the purpose of life, is to live out the experiences so that you can learn. And that's how you accrue wisdom. Like, you can't just show up without the experiences, without the hardships, without the lessons. So I think if I could go back and have a conversation with my younger self, I would just tell him to keep going, to keep his head up, and know that, like, he's going to do great things in this world, and that everything is going to be just fine. So just keep going. And it's fascinating. I think I've always deep down known that, and I've always had this, like, inherent trust in the universe that everything is happening for me and not to me. And so even through the trials and the tribulations, like, in my book, it's really amazing. Like, I talk a lot about my football career and a lot of the ups and downs and things I went through. Like, I ended up losing my starting job 5 different times and had to, like, claw my way back up and see the field again, whether that was blowing my knee out, getting replaced by a high draft pick, losing my job to a younger guy. And every time I'd work my way back, and I'd have to overcome these beliefs and these doubts. And so I'd tell them it's all going to be okay. I'd probably tell them to maybe work a little bit harder and maybe own it a little bit more. Like, in the NFL, it's like, earlier in my career, I kind of had this attitude of, when you're a football player and you make it that far, like, every single team I was on and most guys are on, whether it's high school and college, they're the best player on the team. So there's just, like, I own everybody. I'm, like, really good. And then you get to the NFL and it's like, you're surrounded by the best athletes in the world. And, like, I went from being the best on every team I played on to, like, not really that good, like, on the bottom, like, third of the roster of athletes. And there was a lot of self-doubt and stuff I had to work through. So if I could go back to myself at that time, I'd be like, go in there and own it. Like, you belong here, like, have confidence, because that energy, when you bring that energy into something, it radiates, and people can tell if you feel like you belong, not in a cocky sort of way, but just like a confidence in yourself. Like, if I could have done that, my whole career would have been different, because I would have had this first impression, like, I belong, but this, like, self-doubt, like, do I belong? I'm struggling. That energy shows too. And it's such a high stress, high performance, like, sport, that they will find someone else to replace you if you're not living up to it. And I had to learn that the hard way through a lot of different lessons, which you'll read about in the book. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, how can people support you or reach out to you or learn more about you?
Yeah, I'm most active on social media on Instagram at joe.hawley, Hawley. I have a YouTube channel if you want to check out some videos from my road trip. There's, I think, 25 videos up there, at Man Van Dog Blog. And then I have my website, manvandogblog.com, but I'm currently working on transitioning into more of a personal brand, and starting a new company and writing the book. And so I'm kind of in this transition phase. But yeah, I'd love to hear from your listeners. Reach out to me for sure, and love to connect.
Well, I'm looking forward to the book. I cannot wait. That will be a must read for my road trips. Well, thank you.
I can't wait.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Keep in touch, and let me know how the road trip goes.
Will do.